On this episode, track safety, cars can't finish, and are we seeing some reliability issues? There's a lot happening, and people we didn't think be at the top are at the top of the driver standings. Who knows what's going to happen this season here on the Track Limits Podcast. And hello, and welcome to the Track Limits Podcast. My name is Taylor. I'm joined here as always by my friend Harrison. Harrison giving a disappointing glare at that intro. He does not like it at all.
I wasn't disappointed.
Okay, well, whichever you think. Doesn't matter. Saudi Arabia was our previous race. I need to turn on these monitor in my headphones because I can't hear anything. There we go. And we had an interesting qualifying, an interesting race. Questions of safety happened, not just with the location, but the track itself throughout the weekend. And now we just, we have another new winner for this season and another new pole. So we're already knocking those out of the park.
I was gonna say it's a second race of the year. So two. We have two
Yes.
pole sitters, two winners. What a lap to get pole though from Sergio.
Yes, absolutely.
Unexpectedly snatched it from Ferrari.
Yes, and let's also say we'll start out by saying that this is the hot topic of the day was the worst qualifying for Lewis Hamilton since 2017, which technically that was based on if you take out penalties or wrecks or anything like that, just pure speed. It went back to like 2007.
Yeah, it was rookie year, I think.
So crazy what's coming out of Lewis's car right now, which is nothing.
Shocking. It's also shocking because George was way up there for a lot.
Yeah,
most
George
of the sessions. He was up there. I think he was third in one session, one qualifying. So it was interesting to see. I don't understand. I guess his balance wasn't right, but they didn't change a whole lot. They made a few changes inside of Parc Ferme. So not really sure where the pace in qualifying was for him, which I guess he didn't want to be there in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But still is a very shocking moment.
Definitely. And then we had a terrible accident in qualifying, obviously, with Mick Schumacher. We're very glad that he is okay.
That he's okay.
And sorry, I was reading
my. Glad that he's okay, everyone. That he's okay.
Absolutely. I was reading my notes. I just saw where he finished with qualifying and still ahead of Stroll. But the safety of the track, I believe they even showed a clip where he crashed in the same place in 2021 season. And there had been multiple, Latifi go in that same general area. The problem with the track is it is so close and it's got the speed. So you have the walls of, I guess, Monaco with the
speed of
ridiculous speed of Monza. That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah, but a part of me is like, that's why we love it. Is because it's so on edge. It's so exciting. It's so dangerous. It's why we love this. Now, granted, we want everybody to be safe. We don't want to put people in imminent danger, but part of the excitement of, racing in itself is the danger aspect, the high speeds, the close quarters, the tight racing. And it's also, it's sad. It was hard. It was a hard wreck to watch. Like, it was a terrible crash in a spot. And I do agree they need to, either widen it out a little bit or do something to make it a little more safe. But, I don't think we can sit here and have an outcry about the track just because of, one bad accident. Because then you get through the whole race and there's, Latifi losing it in a weird spot at not high speeds. And outside of that, it was the Albon Stroll incident. I think a lot of people were just up in arms overall as the weekend is they didn't want to be racing there because, first of all, why are we racing in Saudi Arabia from a humanitarian aspect? It just proves more that cash is king. And then, the day of practice, there's a missile strike on an oil factory 10 miles away or 10 kilometers away. So I think a lot of people were kind of upset that they were staying, which rightfully so. I don't think they should have raced with you know, not only the social aspect, political aspect of the climate in Saudi Arabia, but also the fact that they were under attack, which they guess they said they're attacking the infrastructure, but drivers don't know that. I mean, they met until 3 a.m. just to have some sort of peace of mind. And then you go out and the next day, Mick has this terrible wreck on a track that everybody already is saying isn't very safe because you can't really see. So I think it was a lot of compounding viewpoints and, opinions on the track itself. But, at the same time, I think all of the drivers understand the risk they take when they go there. As far as the track goes, there shouldn't be any risk outside of the track, and there shouldn't be that much risk at the track. But I guess a little bit of risk is racing.
I agree with risk, but sometimes I'm curious with this track and based on safety. It's very difficult to be so safety minded, and you have a track as fast and as tight as that. So maybe that could be more of the complaint. But
I agree. It should be wider. I mean, at least give it the Baku treatment and 6-lane highway at its highest speed.
Yeah.
And not so close quarters, but
yeah. I didn't know Star Wars had a track. Oh, that's Batu, excuse me. Batu.
I mean, this isn't let's be honest. If we're thinking logically and our objective brain as Formula One as a whole, we're going to be in Saudi Arabia the entire contract. I mean, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. And we're just going to have to live with it. And they might make some changes. But it's not like they weren't F1 experts helping design the track, ex-drivers.
I'll just go back to a very famous person who just said one word, and that word was money. His name was Mr. Krabs. So very words to live by in the Formula One world. Anything you want to say about qualifying besides Sergio Perez getting up on top, only to
Valtteri Bottas proving once again
P8.
Quite the qualifier.
McLaren's 11-12.
I mean, it was a better showing, but it's still they're better in the high speed corners. I think after the race, you kind of saw Lando try to quell any optimism of anybody, as how many times he said, if we went back to Bahrain, we would still be last because we're terrible in straight line speed and the slow speed corners. So they'll probably not be great in Australia unless something gets fixed. But yeah, it was nice to see them at least have some sort of, success is a loose term there, 11th and 12th.
I want to apologize. You're about to go on talking about Valtteri Bottas, and I just kind of
shut you down. I wasn't going to
continue on how great he is.
I was done. I said what I wanted to say.
Okay.
That he qualified well. He's qualifying as well on a Alfa Romeo as he did in the Mercedes.
And the Haas still getting in there in the top 10 and scoring points next time. With Gunther saying my favorite line he's ever said, that I can't say here.
Because this is a clean podcast.
Because this is a clean podcast. But basically, he said he would have done unspeakable things to the entire paddock for 2 points last year.
I mean, for back-to-back races with points, I mean, with a guy who has sat out a year, whose neck has to be killing him. Like the onboards in the race, not to skip ahead to the race, but the onboards of him, like just like his neck just like leaning where everybody else kind of just like sits.
Yeah.
Kind of proved like he had to have been in some pain after the race.
Well, he just needs to build it up for that Schumacher neck.
True.
Sure. Mick is fine because of his neck.
Probably.
There was a big thing on neck talk. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. How big they are.
Indeed.
I think it's not to get off your fascination
neck talk.
Necks.
Yes. And they're just so muscular.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, they are, let's not say. But going back to, Kevin Magnussen, I mean, after the race, it's like he seems like a completely different person. Like, I don't know if you've seen like the post-race interviews, like when you're happy and you're driving a good car, he's a completely different driver than he was 2 years ago, whereas he gets out of a car and has to talk about finishing 19th, 45 seconds off of 18th. And now he has a competitive car and he's joking around, he's smiling, he's getting along with everybody. It's pretty cool to see. It's a different side of him that other people would like newer fans wouldn't have gotten to see in his
Yeah.
Haas days.
Something I forgot to mention is that our friend Nico Hulkenberg, came back because Seb was still having some COVID effects. So he came back and then went on to.
I feel so bad for him. He also had to have been hurting so bad in that car.
Yeah.
Going around those speeds, his neck. I mean, he finished in the race. He was 91 seconds off of the leader. He finished 12th, but
and still beats,
his teammate. We'll get to that later.
Okay. Let's get to that now. I have nothing else to say about qualifying unless you do.
Oh, that's about it.
Okay. Harrison, take us through this race because we started with 18 because Yuki was still having trouble on the formation lap. He couldn't do qualifying. Sucks for him. Hate to see that. And then Mick didn't race, but
didn't start. You see the thing they say is $1 million to fix that car.
Well, it was a big thing that
they're going to have to rebuild it completely, but when you see numbers with it, it makes it a little bit more real.
And they do have a spare, but they were afraid that they wouldn't be able to race in Australia.
Yeah, I mean, they did the right thing, and they would have had to probably put Pietro in the car, which they've proven once again they don't want to do because they didn't give him the seat in the first place. So I think right call to sit Mick, but poor Yuki. I feel bad for Yuki. I think he's kind of like coming into his own as a driver, and can't even make it back. More problems for Red Bull.
Absolutely. Man, nothing makes you feel worse than what happened to Sergio Perez, though. Now maybe you feel different, but just a very unlucky pit with then a safety car, a pit, a wreck, goes to a safety car. Everybody pits. He doesn't even get around the track before everyone's done pitting. So,
but he was in a tough spot. I mean, he either had to cover Charles pitting, but once again, it goes back to what we've been saying for the past 2 seasons that we've been doing this is if there's ever a time to make a decision on a pit stop, being in second is the best spot to be. You never want to be the leader when it comes down to time to make a decision. And you saw it there. He had to pit to cover the undercut because the undercut would have given Charles a lead anyways. And so Ferrari fakes the pit stop. Charles stays out. And then, Mr. Inopportune moment, Nicholas Latifi wrecks again. Not really sure what happened to him. And Sergio Perez just, that's racing, I guess.
I texted you and said, Latifi giveth, Latifi taketh away.
Yeah, it's a bad thing that he's going to be known for.
Sorry.
He was once their savior. Now he's their villain. But yeah, feel bad for Sergio. I mean, he drove a perfect race up to that point. I honestly think that even if it hadn't happened, I think Charles would have. I think it would have been a race between him and Charles, not Max and Charles.
Just flopped.
Yeah, and I think Charles probably would have won the race.
Take that, Sergio.
Just my opinion. For the way that it was going, I think that Charles would have caught him. And the way that the power of the DRS, I don't know that Sergio would have been not willing, but I don't think he would have been as aggressive as Max was with the fighting for position to get the DRS. If that makes sense. I don't think he would have been locking up trying to beat Charles to the DRS zone.
Yeah. There were a lot of DNFs this race. I'm going with that we're starting to see these new cars as you go into the second race. They're starting to get a lot of miles on these cars. A lot of miles, I'm trying to say some laps on these cars. You're starting to see those reliability issues that I said at the beginning of the season could be something we look at. I've heard some people blame fuel. I've heard some people blame whatever else. But when we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people DNF, one of them was Latifi.
Albon also DNF due to damage, didn't he?
Was it damage?
I think he DNF'd.
Knock.
Maybe I think it was both. I think it was a
Hmm.
mixture of both. But yeah,
I
it was
mean,
what's interesting is even makes it even more interesting is that week one it was all Red Bull power units.
hmm
Week two it's all Mercedes and for well one Ferrari, I guess if
hmm
Botas, but Botas was having some sort of other issue. But yeah, and then you've got all Mercedes powered cars not finishing this one, and Renault, I guess. With
So
Alonso.
when you get to Australia, it's going to be all the Ferrari powered ones.
Yeah, unless I guess unless they've just actually figured it out.
Maybe so. Who knows?
Interesting to find out. I mean, they've obviously got the most power in there, so
All right, this is your time, your favorite moment. Talk to me a little bit about Aston Martin, Stroll losing out to Hulk.
it's not even that
The floor is all yours.
It's not even that he lost out to Hulk. It's that the same situation has presented itself to Lance Stroll multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
He leaves the door open, lets somebody take the space, and then closes it and causes an accident. Why Alex Albon got a penalty for what happened? Alex Albon had every right to dive to the bottom, had the move, was alongside him, and Lance Stroll just acted like he wasn't there. Just tried to hit the apex and wrecks, and then blames Alex Albon for lunging. And it's like, dude, what are you doing at this point? You're already so slow. You're racing for last place at this point, only to beat your teammate. You've lost to him again, a guy who hasn't driven a car in years. Comes in, no training, no nothing, never driven this car, and you're losing to him. You're doing stupid things. You fired a guy who's now putting cars, in the points. You've got a guy named Mike Crack as your team principal. Again, I just don't understand what's going on there. If Lance Stroll keeps his seat past this year, if stuff like this keeps happening and he keeps his seat by the end of this year, it proves everyone right. Everyone who has said he's only there because of his dad will be proven right if he keeps his seat. If he doesn't start scoring points, doing well, at least beating. I mean, when Seb comes, like Seb will be back next week, probably next race, probably. If he's got a little bit more leeway there, but the fact that he's lost to Hulkenberg twice and can't out qualify a guy who doesn't, hasn't raced this car, driven this car, done anything in this car. Yeah. If he keeps having silly accidents, doing stupid things, not scoring points, it proves everyone, all of, they say haters, proves them correct. And we stood up for the guy. And now I just kind of,
you feel like a fool.
Take it all back. I want to take it all back. I won't yet. But there's just, even his demeanor this year has just been something else. I don't know what it is. It's like it's like he's not enjoying it anymore. I already thought he was lame, but it's just almost like he's like, it's a one thing to like not enjoy the racing because you're not doing well, but it's another one to just act like he's been acting. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to explain, but you get the point. Yes, 100% think that he could have left some space there and neither one of them would have wrecked. It didn't matter. It wasn't a practical position to be racing like that for at the end, towards the end of the race. And Alex Albon getting the penalty, it's just kind of, if I'm Alex Albon, I'm pretty frustrated right now.
Don't blame him. Just want to say a great radio moment of Lewis Hamilton finishing P10 and saying that are there even points for that? I'm going to go with that he was being genuine, that he didn't know.
I mean, he might not, but again, we texted about this because it's like Mercedes and Lewis, just specifically Lewis Hamilton and Bono, it's like they're not on the same page when it comes down to a critical decision to make. Because we saw it multiple times last year, especially in Hungary, where he's like, I'm going to leave these tires on when everybody else is going to pit. And again, he was in first. The only time they got it right was in Russia, and he was in second, which was the easier place to be there as far as decisions go. And then it comes out, he should pit when the safety car. Everybody knows he should pit. People are saying he's probably nervous because of Italy 2020 or whenever, that he's going to pit when the pit lanes close and get the penalty. But then you hear the radio of Bono telling him to box, and he doesn't do it. He just keeps going, and I'm sure he saw the car there, but could have finished sixth in the race more
Yeah.
than likely,
Yeah.
and now he's had to fight for 10th because of a bad strategy call when the timing was there for them, and they just didn't capitalize. So it's another strange moment that I think
Do you,
uncharacteristic of Mercedes, of what we think of Mercedes as a whole.
is this one of those? Is this like a trust thing too?
I don't know, because you would think they
It's,
have a great working relationship. They've been
but
together so long.
it's very weird to just hear like, nah.
I don't know. I think it might also be. I think we can chalk this week up to at least like a little bit of frustration being there, because he didn't get out of Q1. He was probably the main one who didn't want to be there this weekend with everything going on. He's got driving not a great car. If you have two other drivers in that car, if you have, you put Lance Stroll and Nico Hulkenberg in that Mercedes, it's finishing where the Aston Martin is probably.
Mhm.
And it's just a whole bunch of buildup of frustration for Lewis that I think that was probably weighing on him. And then him not wanting, it might have been a little bit of not wanting to mess it up, of pitting and then getting a pit, but then in my mind, it's like, even if he pits and the pit lane's closed and he has to serve a penalty, he's still faster than, the other three cars that finished on the lead, that actually finished the race between Stroll, Hulkenberg, and Joe. So I don't know. I can't figure it out. But yeah, it was a strange weekend for Lewis.
We already talked about Magnussen getting in the points again, and Gunther wanting to do unspeakable things. Pierre Gasly P8. AlphaTauri struggles. Our person we said would be in the top three. A top three team needs to pull together.
Yeah, but did you hear the stuff about him being in saying he was in the worst pain of his life for the last 5 laps?
No, really.
He said, yeah, he was like on the radio after in the interview saying like he felt like his intestine were being ripped out of his body. He went to the hospital or to the medical team or something and got checked afterwards. But he said it's the worst pain of his life for the last, he couldn't, and you can see him on the cool down lap. He was driving with just his right hand. He couldn't even lift his left arm up.
Oh my gosh.
So to finish how he finished was, pretty well. I mean, I guess if he was in that much pain, to be able to bring the car home for the last few laps is pretty impressive. He's was screaming. He said he was screaming in pain on the radio. So yeah, we were wrong about them being a top 3. They probably won't be a top 5, unfortunately, but good for Pierre.
I can just see how that goes. Ah! Copy that.
French.
Copy that.
Oh, yeah, there you go. We apologize to our French listeners for that.
We don't have any. Lando Norris finishes P7. He's been mentioned. There you go. Esteban Ocon.
Which, if we're going to talk about that,
let's talk about them racing to the line.
Yeah, and we can couple that in with the whole racing as the weekend, right? You saw it with Charles and Max. You've seen it with Esteban, and even after the race, those two were gleeful. And you see it with all the drivers of this new car, they all seem to just, outside of Mercedes, they all seem to just love to drive it, because it's like go-kart racing, because somebody passes and you don't have to worry about not being able to follow. You can come back at them. Esteban and Lando switched places 3 times in the last 3 laps. It was pretty much whoever got to the DRS zone in second was going to come out in front. But it was exciting to watch. I mean, it was just good racing. You could stay side by side, right behind the other, one behind the other. And on a track that was so tight and fast. I mean, imagine when we get to somewhere that's, a little more open, Silverstone, Monza, Austria, even Spa, we're going to see a lot of good racing with these cars. And you definitely saw it with the 2 at the front. I've seen a lot of people comparing it to last year and saying how clean of racing it is between Charles and Max. But I think there was more on the line last year for those two with the car. I think if it was this car was last year, I think it would be kind of the same, like respectful, just having fun, like good, hard racing.
Mm-hmm.
Because Max felt like he could come back. But yeah, it was incredible to watch those two drive against each other.
Russell team on his back, P5, pulling his teammate.
Pretty
for
uneventful
Mercedes.
race for him. He just kind of drove around in circles.
Sergio 4, and then a double podium for Ferrari. Max pulls it out the end for an exciting race that was great. I didn't hear the radio. A lot of people were giving Max crap because of his radio saying he can't do that, blah, 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 whatever, whining. I just want to say that's probably all drivers do that. They just happen to, play
But
Max.
that's also the Red Bull way. No, I think he had a valid point. Charles was crossing the white line. But yeah, I don't know. It's just he wanted to win, I think.
Gotcha. I do want to talk about one thing that I think is kind of I don't understand it a little bit. And that is I'm seeing a lot of DRS hate when I feel like DRS is giving us some of the best races over and over again. I know some people are complaining because the drivers can just kind of
because the fight to get the DRS.
Yeah, hit the brakes a little bit, just give up right before the DRS zone, and then you can go the detection zone, and then
I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm like that's strategy.
It adds to the strategy.
That's strategy.
But I also think that like nobody really had a problem with it last week.
Mm-mm.
I think it was very track specific because you have those two zones, one turn away from each other. The detection zone is right before the turn after another DRS zone. And you saw like Max like closing his DRS up early just to not pass him to get it again on the front. I think if anything, the discussion shouldn't be, do we need DRS anymore? Or should we get rid of DRS? It should be, do we need to look at where the zones and the detection zones are on tracks, specific tracks? Because we obviously, this year is going to be not a lot done with it because it's a trial run. We want to see, what tracks it works, what tracks it doesn't work, what needs fixing. Obviously, it works. I don't mean it like as in like get rid of it, but what works as far as detection zones. I don't think DRS is bad. I think it's great. It leads to better racing because Max wouldn't have passed him they wouldn't have switched spots 4 or 5 times without it. They would have just been one behind the other probably. So I think we just need to look at where the detection zones are and, maybe where the DRS zones are.
I think that's very valid. I think that to me, it made it exciting. I guess I don't get the hate, but maybe it's coming from, maybe I should have looked at, what teams these people are fans of because maybe it just hurt them and they're upset.
Yeah, but you can't look at can't look at the Twitter and the
Reddit,
and the Redditors.
But see, here's the thing. That's what gives us content.
True.
See, we got to get that outrage. We got to get that outrage. And we'd be happy to have your outrage put on our show if you email us. Stay tuned at the end of the show. We'll give you that email address.
Yeah, I mean,
we'll talk about anything.
I'm all for the DRS. I think it's good. I think it's just, it's recency bias. Like it's going to come to next week or it's going to come to Australia. Maybe not even, I don't know about Australia, but when it comes to like a purpose built track, people are going to go, oh man, when they got to the DRS zone and they weren't having to fight for it and it gave us even good racing, people are going to be all for it. It's just one of those hot topics of the weekend. And it's again, we said this a lot last weekend where I was like, there's a lot of things that we should be talking about and they're overshadowed by other things, and like this weekend, it feels like it was like 2 weeks worth of content in a race, like things to talk about in a race, starting on, Friday and then Saturday and then Sunday. Each day had something big to talk about.
Yeah, it was, anyway, besides that, good race this past weekend. Glad everybody got out of there okay. And now we're about to go to Australia, where we get to stay up till 1 a.m. Eastern time and watch a good race.
Hey, but it's the first time. It's cool to see it back because it's always, usually the first race. It's been 3 years. Well, I guess, 2019. It's the last. I guess they went in 2020, but they didn't race. Uh, yes, I'm excited. And the new layout, we finally get to see the new layout. Finally get to go back to Australia. I actually enjoy the track in Australia. I think it'll be a good race. So it'll be exciting to see. And it's our first 2 week gap of the
Mhm.
season. So what are teams going to have done? What improvements? Is Mercedes going to have done anything to their engine? Are
Who knows?
they going to spend some money on their side pods?
Side pods back. What?
Is McLaren going to come back into form? Is Aston Martin going to be the worst team? Is Williams going to be the worst team? There's a lot
Yeah.
to play on. Is Ferrari going to keep it up with Red Bull?
Hey,
Who
it's going
knows?
to be an exciting time. And folks, you can follow along on our Twitter. Harrison will be live tweeting every practice and every race, 1 a.m., the 2 a.m.,
11 and
everything.
2 a.m. I don't think so.
He's going to be covering it all.
Speaking of late, not to just completely bail on Australia, have you seen the reports of the Las Vegas?
I've not seen any new reports of Las Vegas. I heard they're wanting to do a
Yeah, there's
race.
there's I don't know if it's a real thing or who the source was, if he's just a fake person, but
A
it was
troll.
making its rounds of Twitter today of Thanksgiving weekend 2023 Las Vegas with a start time of 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So 7 o'clock Pacific time start. So a late race, but in America. Because you can't run Las Vegas in the daytime.
No, man. We talk about
Be
track
too
temps
hot.
there. The tire degradation. Won't even
Yeah, it'd be
think of the tire
ridiculous.
degradation.
So it's like I saw a lot of people in England complaining about having to, wake up at 3 a.m. to watch a race. And it's like, well, we're about to do that this weekend in Australia. So we're going to be up. Wait, do you plan if you watch, would you stay up until 2:33, or would you go to bed at like 9 and then wake up at 1 o'clock to watch?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'd probably go to bed and wake up.
Really?
This is the reason why. My wife is out of town during that, so it's just gonna be
You
me.
have baby duty.
I have baby duties, so I'm probably just gonna,
Yeah, I
take
think
a
I just
little
feel like if
nap.
now last night I did wake up at 1:30 with the dog barking and didn't fall back asleep till 5. But
God.
in reality, if I went to bed at like 9, I would just want to sleep through the night. So I think I would have to be opposite and stay up. I would have to, stay
I
up
got you.
till 1 a.m. and
I
watch
got
it.
you.
I'm not going to stay up till 2 and watch practice. That's a bit much. I can watch the replays.
Get you a nice coffee and just cuddle up on the couch and watch you some racing.
I'll drink my rowdy energy. Hey,
Maybe
speaking
rowdy.
of rowdy energy, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about that NASCAR race. I know this is a Formula One podcast, but NASCAR was at Coda this weekend, and my God,
They
it was
were.
incredible.
It was
It was the
amazing.
most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. I
Watch it.
texted my dad about it because it's just like all they do is like knock each other out of the way.
At
You know,
40 miles an hour.
Yeah, it was like there's no track limits, so they're running way wide. Like,
Yeah,
there was a pass. There was a pass for the lead on the last lap on turn like 11, but they just completely missed the apex. Ran, 40 feet wide of the turn. Come back, another guy comes in, takes the lead, but then he gets cleaned out because they just took each other out in payback, and the guy wins. And I was like, this is imagine Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen, which we almost saw it last year with Max and Lewis in Brazil or in Bahrain or in Saudi last year, running each other off the track. But just imagine if they just like cleaned each other out at one point and just purposely ran each other 40 feet wide, were bumping into each other. And then imagine that Max Verstappen gets out of the car and they say, the watermelon farmer, here's a signature move. And they hand him a watermelon and they say, smash that watermelon. And Max Verstappen just takes a watermelon and smashes it on the ground. Can you imagine a scenario where that happens in Formula One? How ridiculous that is. I mean, it was gold, TV gold. But also just, my goodness,
how
that was
ridiculous
so silly.
it is.
NASCAR was silly on a road course. I just thought I would bring that up.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up. I'm glad. We can tell everybody our watermelon smashing sports.
I mean, hey, welcome to America.
Amazing. Anything else you want to say about the race?
Nope. Just hope more of that continues. It's been really exciting to watch. Good racing can be done. Multiple passes in a row with these new cars. Kind of excited to see where it goes.
Cool deal. If you'd like to connect with us on social media, Instagram, we're on Twitter and Instagram at Track Limits Pod. You can email us tracklimitspod@gmail.com. It will probably be read on the air because we'll read anything. Lando Norris was mentioned in this episode. Leave me comments for the Stewards. Thank you to all of you who've been listening to us in this 2022 season. We appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who listened to our first bonus episode. We're going to have another bonus episode this week. Harrison is going to be in charge, and I think we might be joined by a special guest. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a tease. Maybe you'll tune in and realize that guest didn't show up. Who knows? Whatever happens, we hope
It's a guest you don't know.
We hope you listen. Yeah, don't be excited. It's nobody you know. You don't know who this person is.
But you will soon.
Exactly. Until then, we thank you for listening. We'll see you next time here on the Track Limits Podcast.